Good to see everybody this morning. Welcome to the Philadelphia Ethical Society. Please take a seat if you're wandering in. So every Sunday here at the Philadelphia Ethical Society, we meet, we listen to good music, we learn something together, we reflect on it, and then we do it again the next Sunday. I started as the leader here in July, and every Sunday has been a beautiful ritual to become a part of. I've been learning more and more what has happened in the past year, what's the possibility for the future, and where we're headed. And a lot of today is that process of becoming, leaning into that process of becoming, and not focusing too much on where things are in a fixed way. So we also start every Sunday with a moment of silence, just to relax. We live in a big city. There's always things moving. There's always things making noise. So I'm going to give you just a minute to relax into that silence. And then I'll call you back in. Welcome back. I was wondering what people feel in those moments of silence. For me, there's kind of a dread in the beginning, where I'm like, oh, we're going into a moment of silence. What's going to break the silence? Or how I'm nervous, I'm about to speak. And then I start counting to kind of calm myself down. And I was noticing just now that my heartbeat was going faster than my counting. It'd be interesting to have a platform about silence. But today we're not here to talk about silence. We also always have a space every Sunday for the sharing of personal joys and concerns. Welcome. Come take a seat wherever. And so I'm going to share a few myself and then open it up for anyone, if you're new here, if you've been here for a while, to share really anything, as long as you keep it brief, because we have a full program. So 2 members of the Ethical Society that I've had the pleasure of getting to know recently are struggling a bit. And I just want to say hello to them. Maybe they're on Zoom, maybe not. One is Nina Diamond, who I've had the pleasure of having a phone call with, and learned all about her past history here. She's getting back into her home. A few of us have been helping her with that transition. Manu, who you see play guitar music up here, is helping her with that. And so if you know Nina and you didn't know that she was in rehab for a little bit and she's dealing with some things, maybe reach out to Nina, say hello. The other person is Lee McIver. Lee had surgery recently and is currently, I believe, still in the hospital at Jefferson. So if any of you are friends with Lee, maybe we can organize a visit together. Stan and I tried to go see her in the hospital a few days ago, but it was right after she was still in recovery. So yeah, just hello to Lee and Nina if you're listening, and we're looking forward to seeing you again. Now I'm going to open the floor to anyone else who just doesn't have to be a friend who's in the hospital, but really, this is just a space for both joys and concerns. Does anyone, either a member or new folk, want to come say something? Yes, Richard.
Oh, man.
You don't have the wireless right there.
That's okay.
Can you come up?
Oh, I can't run, but
All
all
right.
right.
Try to make this comfy, okay?
I just want to say that today I've had the pleasure of meeting some new people. And Heather and her very active child and Kim's children have given me great joy just watching them run about, and that was really good fun. And also some other people. David came over and introduced himself. So I really am, and Chanel, just met her. And so it's been a great morning for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Pause for meeting new people. Anyone else? Okay. So now I'm pleased to introduce David, and I'll just say a few words and thoughts of gratitude for David, because essentially since I joined the Ethical Society, got to know Kim, the administrator who's sitting here to my left. We've been, observing both the things that already happen in the Ethical Society and the things that we dream of happening. And immediately, I think a lot of people some people have already been here to see a film or to see some artistic presentation. Lots of presentations have happened on the stage behind me. And one of those is the annual Philadelphia Independent Film Festival. And David is a collaborator of the Philadelphia Independent Film Festival. And we're increasingly looking forward to working with them and really receiving their help. That's the thing I want to say, is that David and Ben, who's with an organization called Media Bureau, has been really involved in the art scene, giving a lot of people their first start here in Philadelphia in the art scene, have graciously donated a new projector. That's not that projector, that's the old one, but we have yet to install it. And so David's also working on the possibility of installing curtains here so that we can close and open if we want to have a movie showing in here and actually make it dark, if we want to protect noise when there's something loud in here from reaching out. So that's a first thank you to David, who's sitting right behind me, but you can't see me. Thank you, David. And Ben, he's not here, but thank you, Ben. So I'm going to let David's work speak for itself, but and he'll introduce it a little bit now. So David Abir.
Thank you all for coming. Thank you, Philip. Thank you, Kimberly, for inviting her to. I'm going to play this, and thank you again.
We're so lucky to have David. Ben just walked in the door. Actually, I said David's not here. David's here, but Ben's not. So let's not give another round of applause for both Ben and David, the help, the new projector, the potential for upgrades to the audio-visual system that we have here. While I was watching that, and actually, David said I was here. Your adapter says I'm going to do the same thing. While I was watching that, I was thinking, what an amazing space. We're so lucky to have this space that is surrounded by glass that lets the light in. And throughout the day, the light changes. And we have this incredible opportunity to partner with artists like David that are going to experiment with that and experiment with sound and light in here. It's one of the things I'm really excited about. So today's platform the topic is pluralism in ethical culture. Pluralism is not a word most of us use all the time, but it's a word that has increasingly been used as democracies grapple with authoritarianism, nationalism, and the culture wars. Pluralism, it feels like a synonym of diversity, but it also hints at the idea that we might be diverse within ourselves. That we might live in a pluralistic society, but those groups might also not just be defined by the aggregate of individuals, but actually that our associations and our identities might be changing themselves. Walt Whitman, writing just across the Ben Franklin Bridge in Camden, wrote, "Do I contradict myself? Very well then. I am large, I contain multitudes." This is the idea. The last 2 weeks at Ethical have been an attempt by myself and others to model some of that pluralism. We had 5 takes on death, which invited the Stoa Society, Mexican dance groups from South Philly, other philosophic societies that use our space here and there, to come in and give their own take on death. My goal with bringing these events to Ethical was to encourage us to lean into what is already true about this place. We are home to many voices and many communities. Last night, there was a kids' K-pop birthday party upstairs. It was wild. That was happening right after our Pluralist Lab, which some of you were involved with and helped facilitate. And that was attempting to actually give people the tools. Why am I going to pull that from under here? We use these different colored paddles for people around the small table to express their specific opinion on a topic. And then ask folks to actually attempt to understand and dissect why others sitting across from the table might disagree with them. So today I want to focus on the way ethical culture, despite being founded 150 years ago, has something really special to say about pluralism. And I'm going to try to do that through a few stories. So first, many of us have heard this story, the blind man and the elephant. And this is as I was researching about this story, because I was watching a lecture by the leader of Bergen Society, Kurt Collier, in which he talks about the story of the blind man and the elephant. And I was like, oh, I wonder what the first version of this is. Like, how far does it go back? And of course, we don't really know. There's many versions of it. I'm going to read you one which popularized it into the Western English language, and that's a poem. Okay? So this is The Blind Man and the Elephant. It was 6 men of India, to learning much inclined, who went to see the elephant, though all of them were blind, that each by observation might satisfy his mind. The first approached the elephant, and happening to fall against its broad and sturdy side, at once began to bawl. God bless me, but the elephant is nothing but a wall. The second, feeling of the tusk, cried, hey, what have we here? So very round and smooth and sharp, to me 'tis mighty clear. This wonder of an elephant is very like a spear. The third approached the animal, and happening to take the squirming trunk within his hands, I see, he said. The elephant is a snake. The fourth reached out his eager hand and felt about the knee. What most this wondrous beast is like is mighty plain to me. 'Tis clear enough the elephant is very like a tree. The fifth, who chanced to touch the ear, said, even the blindest man can tell what... This is where I messed up the rhythm there. Okay. The fifth, who chanced to touch the ear, said, even the blindest man can tell what this resembles most. Deny the fact who can. This marvel of an elephant is very like a fan. The sixth no sooner had begun about the beast to grope, then seizing on the swinging tail that fell within his scope. I see, he said, the elephant is a rope. And so these men of India disputed loud and long, each in his own opinion, exceedingly stiff and strong, though each was partly in the right, and all were in the wrong. So often in godly wars, the combatants I've seen tread on in utter ignorance of what each other mean, and preach about the elephant not one of them has seen. So, first I found, it was easy to find a poem, and I was like, okay, where you go back, this goes to Jain, Hindu, different Indian, it goes back so far, it's one of the oldest stories we have. What I found fascinating is that there's all these other versions that come to different conclusions about what this story means, of course. One of the first ones I came about was, this proves the existence of God, this story. And this was my first impression after having to look it up, because I hadn't heard this story since probably my mother or kindergarten teacher had told me this story. And I was struck. I was like, oh, this is actually this. I was for one fleeting moment, I thought, oh, there's a theistic actual background to this story, because it's another part of the story in which there's a non-blind man who's watching all of the blind men, and he's noticing what they're all seeing, but then he is seeing the complete and utter truth. But then there's another version of the story where this young woman is the one taking the elephant into town, and she has this personality, right? So essentially, there's so many different versions of this story. Story number 2, Pleiades. So in the sky above us, there's a cluster of stars we call the Pleiades. The 7 sisters. The problem is there's only 6 stars. So why do we say there are 7 of them? Many cultures around the world refer to the Pleiades as the 7 sisters and tell very similar stories about them. So the Greeks talked about the Pleiades of the 7 daughters of the Titan Atlas. He was forced to hold up the sky for all of eternity and was unable to protect his daughters because he was holding up the sky. Can't blame him. To save the sisters from being raped by the hunter Orion, Zeus transformed them into stars. But the story says one sister fell in love with a mortal and went into hiding, which is why we only see 6 stars. A similar story comes from the Aboriginal groups in Australia. For many Aboriginal groups in Australia, the Pleiades are also a group of young girls and are often associated with sacred ceremonies, female ceremonies. Many cultures around the world have these lost sister stories, and they regard the cluster having 7 stars, but also acknowledge in their myths that only 6 are visible. So why is this? Well, European anthropologists used to think that Europeans brought the Greek story to Australia. Not Eurocentric at all. But the Aboriginal stories seem to be much older than European contact. And there was little contact between most Australian cultures and the rest of the globe for over 50,000 years. So why do they share the same stories? We don't know for sure, but there's a new theory. And there's a book called Advancing Cultural Astronomy. And a few scientists think they might have an answer. So we are all, of course, descended from people who lived in Africa before migrating around the world 100,000 years ago. And the question is, maybe people carry these stories with them.
Measurements with the Gaia Space Telescope and others show that the Pleiades are slowly moving in the sky. One star, Pleione, is now so close to the star Atlas that they look like a single star to the naked eye. And so these scientists took what we know about the movement of the stars, and they rewind using computer models 100,000 years. Pleione at that time was further away from Atlas and would have been easily visible to the naked eye. So it's very likely that 100,000 years ago, people would have actually seen in the dark night sky 7 stars. So is this new scientific story the man that's not blind, that can see all of the rest? Or is it simply another blind man scraping the elephant, trying to make sense of it? Can we know? A third person story. I think my dad will enjoy. My dad's here today. We were out in New Mexico, where my dad grew up, and we were moving the things out of my grandfather's house. We were moving around. I can't remember what we were doing. I just remember looking at a piece of paper that was a representation. It wasn't a representation. It was an application to Rice University, where my grandfather had taught physics. Did I get that right, Dad? Was he teaching physics at Rice? Math. And the application it was my grandfather's notes on this young engineering or math student's application to get into Rice. And what he wrote there really rattled me. And he said, and I'm paraphrasing this, and we had to find this piece of paper because it really moved me, and it still sticks with me. This was after my grandfather had passed, so the whole family was emotional, but it was also exciting to look through all these incredible papers that my grandfather had collected. Him and my grandmother were just really incredible people that I think would have felt very at home in ethical culture and the ethical society if there had been one in Albuquerque. This is what he wrote, as I can remember. Highly recommend him. He is not distracted by questions of who he is. He's ready to learn. He is not distracted by questions of who he is. He's ready to learn. I remember reading that and feeling just embarrassed because I must have been 17, 18, 19, 20. I was distracted by questions of who I was, or at least I was pursuing them. I thought I needed to figure that out. But something in me while reading this from my grandfather, and I don't know why, it felt like I was receiving a little bit of wisdom. So what is the story of the ethical society? Well, here's one of those versions. Oh, pictures are falling here. From our website. The ethical culture movement, founded in 1876 by Felix Adler in New York City as an alternative to traditional religions, is dedicated to deed before creed. Our movement helped establish some of the country's first settlement houses and kindergartens, and the Visiting Nurse Association. The Philadelphia Ethical Society, founded in 1885, helped initiate free legal aid for the poor and has served as a sanctuary for refugees. Our guiding principle remains the primacy of ethics in everyday life. Today, our ethical work includes social justice work with the Interfaith Coalition Power, and Camp Linden, a summer camp that introduces children to the wonders of nature. Ethical humanists work to honor the dignity and worth of each person. Each person is unique and can foster uniqueness in others. We are non-theistic. Humankind is a part of nature. By paying respect to all that surrounds us, we cultivate the feelings that some call religious, spiritual, sacred, or holy. We understand that the well-being of our natural environment greatly depends upon responsible human effort. We have faith in the transformation of the human condition through personal and community efforts. I read you that because it's one version, right? It's what we try to tell about the past. And I'm not here to question that version. I'm here to note that that's a lot of what we try to do is describe the story of ourselves. It's in human nature. Felix Adler, who founded Ethical Culture, was interested in telling a story about ourselves that didn't fix any one particular ethical truth into writing, but was a generative praxis that could help us arrive at new ethical understandings and new ethical institutions. And this is why I think we at Ethical Culture, despite being small, have a really powerful role to play in the future of what is attempting to be a democracy. So a prescriptive belief system tells you how to think, what to believe. It says that here's the bullet list, can you check off these things, do you believe these things, and you'll get into heaven, or some other version. That's the story. Felix Adler used the metaphor of people wrapping themselves in this story. That's the quote. And here I'm quoting a lot from Kurt Collier, leader at Bergen. Adler used the metaphor of people wrapping themselves in cloaks of belief, religions, ideologies that explain, protect, comfort, and orient them as to how we should live. And when we meet someone whose cloak of answers, those Adler's words, differs from ours, we often tug at it, try to pull it off, challenging those beliefs, without understanding the deep needs that led to them to put that cloak on. We saw this probably a lot yesterday in our pluralist lab. Felix Adler said that real ethical engagement begins with recognizing those deeper needs, but overlooking the superficial differences between beliefs. I think that's what makes ethical culture so special, and what gives us something to really offer, especially to a generation of people that are questioning about whether democracy and the possibility of a pluralistic society is possible. So now I want to move in to more of an interactive workshop. And I'm going to ask you all to think about and reflect on the different pieces of your story, the different aspects that you relate to ethics or social action or politics. And I'm going to take just a second to connect my computer, so bear with me. Good. Make sure it's clicked onto HDMI. Should come up soon. This is also the reason we're so excited for David and Ben's help at upgrading our AV system, so we can make this a little more seamless in the future. Here we are. Okay. So I'm going to go through a range of ways in which people from all different philosophical and social and religious traditions have thought about the way they relate to social action or their place in the world. And then I'm going to ask you all to pick two of these and reflect on why you find them the most compelling. Okay. So the first, you all can see this pretty well. The world will never be what you want. Be at peace with that. Change comes, but with the flow of life on its own time. And you don't have to memorize this because I'll put it all on screen. You'll be able to see all of them. Okay. So this is from Lao Tzu. This is Taoism, which as an undergrad at Temple, I needed that sophomore year. Life is tough and the gods are useless. Do what is pleasurable while at the same time avoiding pain. Build a garden and bring comfort to others. Epicurus, David Hume, I'm sure many others. There are things within your power to change and things that are not. Focus only on the things you can. Stoicism. We're home to the Stoic Society. I don't think anyone here from Stoic Society?
visit their meetings.
Julia knows. They meet upstairs, often on Sundays after us. The world is filled with things that we desire. Let that go, and you will see life for what it really is. Feel compassion and bring comfort to those who still think change is possible. Great Buddhist. The world is the way it is because humans are broken, imperfect, and or lack will. We will always fall short. To be good, then, is simply to follow a divine path. Change can only come when we change ourselves. With the right tools or method, the world is knowable, understandable, and predictable. Things happen for a reason. Use the light of reason to understand what it is and to discern a path forward. In some ways, this is the water we swim in. Things are the way they are because of external forces such as power, patriarchy, or economics, which have skewed our view of the world. Real change can only come if we question these first assumptions. We are a species driven by deep biological needs, homeostasis, teleonomic ends. Most of what we think about the world is rooted in our biology and our mere rationalizations of that biology. Context determines response. Focus on the context and systems. You've read Richard Sapolsky or Dawkins. I think we had a talk earlier this year, this summer. Dan, you were talking about Spinoza, and then we were talking about Sapolsky. The fact that we notice that things need to change is because goodness is deeply rooted in our being. We must strive to reveal that framework and act in ways that these insights can be universally applied. And this is also, in terms of ethical culture, a little bit of the water we swim in. I don't think it's the water we swim in the larger society, but this comes partially from Adler, who was reading Kant. Okay. Still up there behind me, right? Don't need to present, but I guess I do. Just give me 1 second to zoom in on this for you. So this is where it's going to get interactive. So these are the 9 that I stated. Right? It's not the totality of the ways to think about the world. Take a few moments, and then I'm going to call on folks to share 2 of these that resonate with them. Okay? And I would encourage you to try to pick 2 that maybe aren't exactly so similar to each other, but in charge. It's probably hard for many of you to read these small ones, right? So I'm going to read. No, I think I'm going to ask people to share. I think you were probably paying attention. Give you a couple moments. Sharing this here with the folks on Zoom, and I'm going to ask you to share with us. Share with you. Okay. Who would like to begin? Pick 2. Share back to the room about why they resonate for you. Hannah.
So a lot of these resonated with me, but the 2 that I'm going to talk about are 7 and 3. So 7 is that.
And actually, Hannah, I'm gonna ask you, come up to the front while I'm getting the wireless mic.
Alright, so you guys know, you don't come to the front.
Not everyone, but I know you can come to the front.
I'm a teacher, it's okay. I'm just big in front of people. Do I have to use the, can you guys hear me?
No, use the mic.
Use the mic? Alright, let's make this a little more awkward. Can you guys hear me now? Okay, so, alright, oh, I can read from here. Okay, so, number 7 was that things, let me start over, in case you didn't hear me before. So, I was saying that a lot of these resonated with me, but the 2 I want to talk about are just really interesting when talking about them together, because they do resonate with me, and that's 7 and 3. So with 7, things are the way they are because of external forces such as power, patriarchy, or economics, etc. And they have skewed our view of the world, and real change can only come if we first question assumptions. And number 3 was, there are things within your power to change and things that are not, and focus only on the things that you can and that matter. And these 2 seem to contradict each other in like a really big way, because first it said, we need to first question those assumptions that come from these external forces that control the world and our societies and guide our society. And then there's the idea, well, focus on what you can change because you can't change everything. So they resonate with me because I feel that in so many ways. Like the patriarchy controls most societies in the modern world different ways. Economics controls what we can do in many situations. It does limit, these things limit us, these systemic issues limit us in some ways. And so we're told then to question why we think something and why we do something and to look within. But then on number 3, it's like, well, focus on what you can change, and then we're looking outward. Let's choose things to change. So in a way, they're contradicting, but they're also working together. That there's these big systems that control things, and we can't change those systems. But then thinking like, well, what can we do then? What can we do externally? We're gonna first question internally and then turn externally. That's kind of where my mind was. So.
Thank you, Anna.
Yeah.
This is what we're gonna do. If you have the courage to come to the mic, this is gonna be a moment to build the skill of speaking into a mic. If you don't want to move because you can't, because it's a little too hard or it requires so much energy, I'm going to try to repeat what you say into the mic after you share it and leave it, because the wireless mic batteries have not been charged. So, who would like to come up here first? We'll do that.
So I think it's good that I followed because the 2 I chose are 7 and 1, which may at first blush seem sort of diametrically opposed to one another. So I won't reread 7 because it was just read, but the gist of it being patriarchy and power and economics skewing the view of the world. And then number 1 being the world will never be what you want, be at peace with that. Change comes but with the flow of life and on its own time. So the reason I connect those together is that, 7 to me is a call to action, and knowing that there is a need for change and that change is not going to come without action, but 1 comes from the need to have peace while that happens and to find joy while that happens. It sort of reminds me of the phrase, one must imagine Sisyphus happy. You're rolling the ball up the hill and the ball comes rolling back down the hill and you have to start all over again. And that's sort of what being in 7 is like for me. And what I have found for myself is that the only way to survive that is to know that in time things will change. Life is going to go through cycles and it's not always going to be easy, and we have to find joy while we fight for the change that's in 7. And then I just want to share something that I have actually in notes in my phone because I heard it. It was a master class for Black kids. you can be one of those people.
Julia, you want to come
So I chose 2 and 9. So I want to start with 2. Life is tough and the gods are useless. Do what is pleasurable and easy, while at the same time avoiding pain. Simply build a garden and bring comfort to others along life's hard path. So yeah, I don't know what anyone else has been through, but I know I spent a lot of years of my life trying to survive my brain and trying to survive my circumstances. And I didn't build a life in that time. I built survival. And as I'm now in a mental and career space where I'm trying to like build more of a life for myself, trying to find ways to like help people who have been through trauma and like help make the world a slightly better place through my presence is really important to me. And I feel like one of the reasons I consistently am drawn to ethical society is it feels like a place where each and every one of us are trying to build like a better life for all people and not just, I think people of every background would say that they care about others, but a lot of people's care only extends to people that they recognize themselves in. And one of the reasons I like ethical society is that's not really the vibe I get here. The other is the fact that we notice that these things need to change is because goodness is deeply rooted in our being. We must strive to reveal the framework and act is in I think that N was cut off, in ways that these insights can be universally applied. And yeah, I think that kind of goes back to what I was saying about how it should be universal. We should be able to like see morals as an imperative and not just, apply them to our families or the people we're closest to, but like we should be able to look at strangers as like human beings that deserve the best as well. And so this is the 2 I picked.
I like the drum roll. We're going to incorporate more drum rolls in the platform at the podium. Who's next? Who would like to share? Aditi.
Hi everybody. I really liked 5 and 9, even though when I first read 5, I thought it was kind of depressing. I feel like the more I thought about it, the more I think, I feel like one of the greatest illusions is the illusion of separation. And so, if you view changing yourself as a way to affect change in the world, then I think those 2 actually have a lot in common. And so that's why I liked them.
No one else?
Me.
So I've been reading a lot of Thomas Pynchon lately, and so I also am drawn to 7 and 8. And I'll be brief because otherwise I will blather into incoherence. But 7 to me, it all comes down to that last line about the need to question assumptions, because so much of what is going on in the world today is because people are acting on bad information. I mean, or information that once was good and now has corroded. I mean, I would like to see, I think we need an entirely new constitutional convention, personally, with massive changes. But I think bad information also underlies number 8. Have we read that one? can't.
I think you're up. Yeah.
Well, we are a species driven by deep biological needs. Most of what we think about the world is rooted in our biology and our mere rationalizations. Context determines response, focus on context systems. And to me, this just has to do with, the need for objective measures. And so, anyway, retention.
So in reality, when you say the wrong thing up here, that little buzzer, the beeping noise goes off. That's because Stan knows more about ethical culture and what's happening behind the scenes in the room. So it's just, that's a little message. If the beeping noise ever goes off. Stan, did you want to share?
Sure. Gosh, I like them all. But I'll pick just one. The world is the way it is. And I'll add two to it. So one is the Serenity Prayer. You've all heard it. You can Google it. And the other is a quote by one of my favorite artists, Salvador Dali. Never fear perfection because you'll never achieve it. And they all resonate that way to me, because we boils down to we gotta chill out and accept people for the way they are, and get them to accept us for as we are.
When you reach enlightenment, you get to one of those shirts that stands for the Philadelphia Ethical Society shirt. Dan.
So Phil, I really appreciate that you brought up Whitman, talking about how we're really a committee. People think about being consistent and hypocrisy and all this other stuff as this huge goal. But the fact is that while some of these ones on the higher numbers reflect my intellectual commitments more, particularly like, 7, things are the way they are because of external forces and all that stuff. And then we talk about, trying to follow Adler and change the world and make it better and bring out the best in other people and getting committed to that. Well, that leads to real stress and real frustration when we dwell in that space. And it's good. I want to say we should do that. But when I find myself doing that too much, it really, really becomes burdensome. I can't walk through life like that. And that's why the earlier, like the Epicurus and the Taoist ideas resonate with me. So yes, I'm being hypocritical and contradictory. I affirm the later statements and I affirm the former, even though they don't fit together very well.
And I was just disappointed you didn't add in a Go Birds at the end. Which, by the way, plug for our December 14th Sports as Religion with UPenn Professor Megan Robb lecture here back on the 14th. It's going to be a lecture and then followed by an Eagles watch party. So please, and if you're seated and you'd like either to, I don't think we're going to be able to reach the mic, but if you'd like to speak loudly, I can then repeat back into the mic what you're saying. And I think we'd love to hear from those who maybe have decided not to speak because of the mic situation. And then I'm going to call out, we have a really awesome turnout from a very particular, I went to speak to a class at UPenn the other day at Phil's, and all the four of you came, right, today? So that's awesome. Yeah.
I'm a Temple student, that's the only time you're gonna hear a shout out to you, Ben, from me. Can we have somebody from your group share? Somebody willing to share?
Resonated most with me. We've talked about both of them already, but I think, again, more deeply, 5 resonates to kind of the struggles and the challenges that we all face, that we all have them, that I think the purpose of our lives is figuring out what to do with them, and I think that's what makes life beautiful. And then I think when I think about how I want to affect change in the world or make the world a better place, I think about the systems that we all operate in, how they are affected by the flaws that we all hold within us. But I think that's, again, like a practical and then like an internal interpretation of things. So that's me. Thanks.
Okay, so now we're gonna, first of all, thank you. Does anyone else want to share? Yeah, oh, we have some more. Okay, let's keep going.
Took me a minute to think about this one, and I'm a philosophy student. I like to think of myself as a philosophy student for life. So those who know philosophy students may know we can think over something in circles forever. But I was very well from that. If I had to choose the 2 that resonated with me most, I would probably say 2 and 9. Very difficult choice, though. For number 2, I first learned about the Epicureans shortly after college when helping out a friend with a project for his class. And there's a lot of misconception about what the Epicureans believe, that they're just like into partying and living the easy life and not working a day in their lives, just doing things because they're fun and avoiding everything else. And I learned that they're not that way at all. There's another school of philosophy called the Cyrenaics that focuses more on the let's have fun and avoid all else side of things. But the Epicureans, I learned, have this deep appreciation of simplicity and a recognition that even in ancient Greece, people might put more burdens on themselves than were really necessary for a good life, and that a good life can be achieved by having good friends near you and just the simple necessities and not wanting for excess. And when I think about how that applies now, all the things that we're pressured to buy, the attention economy telling us what we have isn't enough, these subtle, subliminal pressures for social status, for power, for prestige. And an Epicurean might look at us and say, how much of that do we really need when happiness is something you can find so much closer to home? With simple things like a good meal with friends, a walk in the park, just share time with your community, or curled up with a good book. So I've always appreciated them for that. I'll just keep my remarks on number 9 brief. I don't think that humans are either inherently all good or inherently all bad, but I've been reading a lot about human nature lately, and I think that we definitely have the capacity to do a great deal of good. And humans are inherently social learning beings that are capable of collaboration and just need the right atmosphere to foster that sort of attitude, that empathy, and bring that out of each other.
Come on up. And maybe say your name. I don't recognize you.
My name's Steven. This is only my second week here, so no worries. I was thinking about coming up and then heard the shout out to Go Quakers. I'm originally from Quakertown, so that got me up here. 9 also resonated with me, as well as 3. So I'm going to start with 9 actually. And I actually think it's a few keywords and sort of the implied pieces of what 9 says without saying it that really resonated with me. So we notice things that need to change, and we must strive to reveal that framework and act. So really pushing, kind of saying that everyone has the ability to notice it, but the instinct to, or the importance of resisting the instinct to kind of fall into the bystander effect and not take action when you know something is wrong is extremely important, which I think is really reinforced by number 3 as well, is when you have the power to make a change, that's when you really should focus on acting. And I think the last word in number 9 that really resonated was universally. I think that's almost kind of contradictory because it
You're gonna be the last one, Eric, so
Okay.
make it dramatic.
Let me make this okay. Number 9, my problem is that all of them touch on some things, but they also kind of, I think, contradict each other. I also think that one thing I noticed when you talk about plurality is one of the things I had a problem with is that I think all the quotes are by men throughout history. I tell you why that's the same. Because if women are half the world and are acting in our best interest and always have been, not to quote from them or use their observations to me is kind of a defect that may hold us back. I think we have to increase the pool of people that we quote from. And the thing about number 9 has that a little bit, but I'm also worried about, I think the serenity prayer is give me the strength to accept the things I cannot change. I will add what Angela Davis said. Also, to fight for the things that are unacceptable. That to me is the most important thing, because people tell us, or the people that want us, that these things, well, you can't really change these things. There's always people that have that foot on your neck and tell you really can't change things. And I think what our collective fight is all about, and I'll give you also a quote from Nelson Mandela. We sometimes are afraid to know how powerful we are, and that's what holds us back. Because we know our collective power and our collective hope, then we won't be afraid to fight against things that seem insurmountable. And then we find out they're not insurmountable. So I guess that's why I think number 9 comes close to that. But I just want to say, I think we need to increase the pool of people that we quote from, because these people have been out there fighting in so many different ways, particularly women who hold up half the sky, as the Chinese saying, I believe. And I think we find better ways and more victorious ways to win battles, because we can change their unacceptable, and that's where I'm at now. Thank you.
We're gonna end on that one. Okay, this is a great collective task, I think, because I would love to do this again, Eric, and I'd love to have your help in redrafting this, either in larger scope, and anyone else who wants to do it, because I think it's something to do every once in a while, especially for new folks, to see kind of what voices speak to them. I would hide behind the fact that I didn't make these slides, and I just did a little bit. So I want to make new ones, and I think that collective actually workshop would be fun. It's the kind of our favorite quotes. You know, the Tree of Knowledge ceremony is coming up, which I've never participated in, on December 7th, where we have a giant tree that we decorate with our favorite thinkers and important activists and thinkers and writers that have come from before. So maybe we can talk about doing a workshop for a platform that is actually making a bigger mosaic of this that better reflects us. I'm going to move now into the orientation part of this. So I promised in the flyer that this was both going to be about pluralism and about how the society functions. And so on your table are these maps that I believe, Mike, you first put together. We need a new organizational chart. We're in a moment of transition where we're trying to restart old committees that haven't been maybe as active. And we need all folks who are involved in the society to understand the system that we have to keep each other accountable, to structure our work, because doing anything together takes organization. And we need to learn how to be better organized together, how to structure meetings efficiently, how to structure committees efficiently. So this piece of paper is the organizational chart of the Philadelphia Ethical Society. Starting from the top, and Mike, we were laughing about this because Mike was like, we might need to change this because the Board of Trustees is the sun giving light to the entire organization. He was like, I don't know if that's the best representation. But I will say, compared to all of the very bland, square organizational charts I saw on Canva, I think this is a really inventive organizational chart. So you'll see the Board of Trustees as the sun at the top, and this also includes staff. On the left, you'll see Kim, Tracy, who's I don't think's in the room right now, but Tracy's our building administrator. His art is up on the wall. And maybe I would like to just simply call folks out so people know who people are. Mike is our board president. You don't have to stand up or wave for everybody, Mike. Kim is our administrator. Wave to everybody. Dan is our board. Also, if there's a mistake here, please call it out, member of the board or anything. Dan, I believe you're our secretary. Okay, can you wave to everybody? Go Birds. Nick is our treasurer. He's not here today. Nick is no longer has officially stepped down as treasurer. Correct.
This one. Nick has been our former president of the board, and he's been our treasurer forever. And Nick has been a fantastic supporter of the Philadelphia Ethical Society, and he did his job beautifully and for way too long. And just a shout out to Nick for being amazing.
And I wasn't privy to the last conversation in the finance committee, but essentially we're divvying up. We're in the act of divvying up a lot of the tasks that Nick had held down for quite a long time. You often see her with a political t-shirt on. And then we have our trustees at large. Drew's not here today. Sylvia, can you wave? Sylvia's also on the board. John, is John here? I saw John. John. Yeah. So wanted to give you just a little bit of overview of how the organization functions after introducing especially the board. So going left to right, the way that this was structured, and does anyone need one of these? Do they not have? On the left are the kind of folks that make every platform happen. And I'm giving you this overview because we need help with all of these activities. And in the next couple of weeks, we're going to be doing both volunteer and member orientations on the first and second Friday in December. I'm going to hold basically office hours. We'll do a couple social hours to get to know each other, but also for you to get a sense of what it would mean to become a member. And the application to become a member is pretty simple, and the process is pretty simple. It involves getting to know us, coming back so that we actually know each other, right? We don't want you to just apply to become a member without knowing us and us knowing you a little bit. It then involves a meeting with myself or members of the board, other folks here, and then a simple vote at the board to accept you as a member. And right now we're in a moment where we're trying to get more folks involved, and we're specifically saying, hey, there are duties that come with membership, but there's really beautiful benefits. And some of those duties are, making sure there's snacks and coffee hour. Like, where's Carol? Let's all applaud for Carol. Carol, thank you for organizing. Yeah, everyone's like, yes. Carol has been organizing coffee hour for how many decades, Carol?
The members did it themselves.
Oh.
I'm just facilitating.
So we need help with making sure there's food and coffee at coffee hour. We need help on volunteer days when we take care of the building and we clean up. We're going to do a dusting day, and we're replacing some of the rugs upstairs. We're starting a co-working space upstairs that we're going to need help volunteer support for. Okay, but then there's also incredible benefits, not just really like having a sense of community here, but if you want to rent out a space in the building, there's a discount for members, right? And so there's a lot there on both the duty side and the benefit side. We also have Camp Linden, which is, you can see here over towards the right, is one of the committees. We organize social outings out there, and we do volunteer trips out there. We get a sense of, we get to escape the city and experience Camp Linden together, and also take care of that place that gives a sense of wonder to young kids who don't get that chance, right? That's our environmental education and swimming camp that we own and operate. And let's see, is Sharon or Jeffrey here from Camp Linden Committee? Okay, Sharon's on Zoom. Thank you for all your work, Sharon. So I skipped a little bit, but let's go to the left. Like, there's the folks that we also organize for our, we have a guest musician every Sunday. It's either Rollin, who's traditionally played here a lot, or guest artists like David, who presented today. We have someone, right now Kim's taking care of Zoom tech. We need help doing that every week, but right now she or her daughter Estelle is taking care of that. Okay, I'm going to move over to the Education Committee, and Susan, I'll ask you to stand up either way. Yeah. So Susan, this is one of the most interesting opportunities as a member that you would get if you became a member, is that we basically are a community of learning and practice here at the Ethical Society, in the sense that we design a learning curriculum that involves either, I decide what I'm going to speak about as a leader, but then we have guest speakers that we invite, and we have events that we run, and the Education Committee is where that action takes place. So if you're interested in thinking about what type of learning experiences, what type of workshops we want to run, how we want to structure them, become a member and join the Education Committees. And thank you for all your work, Susan. And Betsy Lightborn, who's been the Education Committee chair for so long, I want to thank her for all her work. Okay, so moving to the right on your chart, the Community Committee. This is something that has not existed for a while, or at least since I've been here, it hasn't had a structure, right? And this is a lot, Hannah, you and I were talking about restarting that, or at least moving towards doing more things as a community that aren't necessarily programmed, right? What did, was it Stephen? Who was it? I think it wasn't Stephen. Who was it that brought up, hey, maybe it was you, Dan, that said, just get together and have a meal. Someone had, basically the community committee is just, let's do some fun things together, let's hang out, let's get to know each other in a casual, relaxed environment, share food. But that also takes work, that takes organization, so we need help with that. But we're not ready yet to just immediately restart the community committee. Right now what we want to do is just organize some social outings. Whether you're a member or not, you can take part in those. I'm going to go down now to the Finance Committee. This is where there's a group of volunteers that think about and look at our finances, including the administration of the revenue that's generated from our rentals. Most of our revenue is generated from rentals. We have 3 floors above us. Incredible things happen in this building from all kinds of people that rent from us. Some of you may be part of those organizations. That is part of the structure of what makes it possible for us to have staff. In fact, it's the main thing that makes it possible for us to have staff. So understanding the fact that we are an ecosystem of organizations and we're blessed to own a building and be able to be creative about how we use that space and the revenue and the partnerships that we bring in through folks is really important. Media and communications. I know I've heard you, Carol, saying we need ethical views back. We need help right now supporting the publication and writing of new of what we've been for over a century at our core. And I really hope I'm I'm doing a very big meta view, so I really hope if I'm missing any details, please jump in from folks who have been around for a very long time, because I don't want, this isn't like a thank you to everyone who's ever been involved in the Ethical Society. This is an overview mainly for you folks. The building, and even there, see, I'm new, I mixed up a little bit. The building committee also thinks about rentals and thinks about the upkeep, right? So if you're an architect, an engineer, if you like to work with your hands and want to think about the future of this building, fixing it up, working with our friends Ben and David about the renovation. That used to exist, that I'm also trying to encourage all of us, especially new members who are coming on board and want to take on thinking about the future of an organization and taking on responsibilities for that strategic planning. I know the folks at Fells, this is what we talked about in that. So this is an overview of the larger committee, a larger structure. All the way on the right then, we have an Ethical Action Committee, which includes and sometimes has I would say, emerging or a dynamic relationship with the Ending Racism Task Force. So Eric and Sylvia, can you both raise your hands so people know who you are? So wonderful human beings. If you want to get involved with what they do and put together you're going to hear a reflection, I believe, from Sylvia right after I speak about the Ending Racism Task Force. And the Ethical Action Committee, Julia, who came and spoke, wave your hand. She's been involved in that. That includes various sort of mostly outward-focused volunteer opportunities where we as a society organize to do something in solidarity with the community. Okay, so that is a large overview of all the folks, and I hope I didn't miss anybody or anyone takes it personally if I didn't say their name. Say thanks again. This was just meant to give, especially new folks who have been here, an orientation to how things work at the Ethical Society structurally. So, first 2 Fridays in December, we're going to be doing either a social hour here and a conversation about what ethical culture is. So mark those in your rent. It's going to be like 5 to 7 p.m. And that's really how I wanted to end my talk. Now we're going to hear from David again. And then after David, no, let's move in. Sorry, I confused myself a little bit. Let's do announcements. And Sylvia, why don't you come on up and share the reflection from the Ending Racism Task Force. And then we'll go into general community announcements if you want to speak. And then we'll end with David's second video. And then I think we're going to have Bob come and sing for us, if he's willing, a hymn that we have for you today. So, Sylvia, thank you for your reflection.
Okay. And thank you, Phil, for helping us get a better picture of the elephant, of our lives, of ethical humanists, of good human beings and citizens. Thank you. That was really helpful. Let's give Phil. That was wonderful. So as Phil pointed out on the chart there, Eric and I have been chairing the Ending Racism Task Force for 5 or 6 years here, and we meet monthly. We have both a kind of a business meeting and a social, and then something educational. And as it turns out, our next meeting is this coming Saturday, and you are all invited. It'll be right here at the Ethical Society from 1 to 4. We have some business that we do, but then we also have something educational. And this month, I believe it's going to be a film from August Wilson that we'll then be discussing afterwards. So hope some of you can come. And then we have a potluck with it, so bring something good to eat, and we share that at the same time. The Ending Racism Task Force is an organization that tries to look at racism in ourselves. How can we be better human beings and get rid of any kind of conscious or unconscious racism in ourselves? How can we make the Ethical Society a more welcoming place that everyone feels welcome and doesn't pick up any kind of signs of racism that would make them feel uncomfortable? And then how do we look at our greater society, institutional racism in laws? What can we do to challenge them? So that's part of our mission statement. And one thing that we do then every Sunday is to have a brief reflection here at the microphone. So my reflection today has to do with something that our treasurer alerted us to. Nick Sanders sent us, those of us who are members on our email, this notice about Ruby Bridges. How many of you were aware that this past week was a celebration of what Ruby Bridges did? Not too many, so I'm good. I'm glad I'm just not repeating what you might already know. Nick, who's our treasurer, wrote to us, said, have you heard the story of 6-year-old Ruby Bridges? It's another story of courage in the face of racism in our country. His public school sent him a letter saying that in 1960, Ruby Bridges made history as the first African American child to integrate an all-white public elementary school in the South. On November 14th, 1960, at just 6 years of age, she walked into William Frantz Elementary School in New Orleans. And there's a famous picture of that. She's a little tiny tyke and surrounded by these big National Guard or service people to protect her from the hostile crowd, from people, adult women and men and children, white men and children, and white men, women and children, jeering at her, cursing at her. What courage this kid have. And her parents too, that they would have allowed their child to endure that. So in commemoration of that, this past Friday, schools all over the United States commemorated that by school children. Philadelphia and the schools that commemorated Ruby. And just as we pointed out with some of the views here, there's a lot that needs changing, and it takes courage to change it. And so when we are faced with things, let's remember Ruby and try to work up that kind of courage. One thing that's going on in Philly right now, as most of you know, at 6th and Market, there's an exhibit there of the time when George Washington was president there and had 9 enslaved people. Our current president wants that taken down. It's a bad thing to think about history that wasn't all roses and peaches. So there's an area where we can all have courage. Let's protest that we want that exhibit to stay, whether you go to city council, whether you go to the park commission, whether you go to the president, and speak up and do what you can to make sure that exhibit is not taken down. Thank you, Ruby Bridges.
Okay, so now I'm going to open up for committee and just general community announcements. First committee. Do any of the committees have an announcement?
Well, we have a board meeting today, 6 p.m. And it's open to the public, but it's on Zoom. So
if you're interested in that, come find Stan right afterwards to get the Zoom link to the board meeting. Any community announcements disconnected from other things happening in Philly briefly that people in the room, maybe they're here for the first time, you think people in this room would want to know about? Okay. So now I'm going to pass it back to David for his second intervention. And then after that, we're going to sing along to Robert. So David, I will go back and turn off the lights for you.
Thanks again. Real brief. I didn't realize, the thing I like about being an artist and that in any kind of self-study or reading a book, or sometimes in Quaker meetings at high school where someone would say, something that would resonate with me. So I had, before I started committing to presenting music as a physical art form, I had a performance installation group with 2 artists, Rebecca Chamberlain and Enrique Lozano. And we were granted to do a series of performance installations. One of them was dating myself back in 1998 at the Philadelphia Fringe Festival, which was the last time I actually performed music in the city. And I hadn't realized until a Greek friend brought over Greek friends of hers who had listened to this and exclaimed that I was writing dithyrambs, which I never heard of. And they're ecstatic choruses from ancient Greece that was sung between a leader and a chorus. So being exhausted with doing performances, I was like, what's the best vehicle to play 90 minutes of music in a good sound system and have people sit for an hour and a half? And I realized, I should make a film based on this sort of silent musical. So I wrote a story loosely based on Greek history, where Arion is the figure who was said to have composed in the first dithyrambs, and he was lost at sea. So I came up with this kind of idea where Persephone and Aphrodite were having a test to test the faithfulness of humanity. So what you're going to hear now is sung between Aphrodite and her 2 earthly manifestations with their Kypris and Cytherea, and the chorus, which is responding to them, are telechins, which in ancient Greece were half dog, half sea children. And the video are just sketches. Some of Enrique's paintings were with AI. Benji and I were messing around with it to try to get it to animate. So there's no real, it's not really telling the story linearly. It's just something to see, the ideas that I'm seeing in my head as this is progressing. Pardon that. False start.
And with all the lights going over, Ben and I were sitting in the back, it's like before the room dimmed down, but it was just because of the way the clouds and the sun were going, right? So it looked like we turned the lights off, but.
That's actually the same experience that you have when the first film that I showed, when you enter into those sculptures and the light shifts as the music shifts. That's the kind of like cloud going over the sun that you physically feel like light as it's manifested. So that was well-timed nature.
So, before we end today, I'm going to ask Bob Steinfort to come up to the piano. I'm going to pull up we're going to turn off the projector. We had a lot of requests to bring back We Will Be One, the hymn here at Ethical Culture. So, if you're willing to sing along, please do, if you know the lyrics. There's, I think they were passed around as people came in. I'm just going to pull up the projector for you, Bob, so you're not covered back there.
Are we going to sing both verses?
Yep. You should have the lyric sheets in front of you. If you don't, they're in the back on the table.